So, and welcome to Let's Talk SEO. Over the past couple of years, I audited maybe of several hundred websites, and one of the most common problems I see even today is with Hreflang tags. So, if you're not familiar with Hreflang tags, here's a brief introduction to what they are. If you do international SEO, and let's say you have pages in Australian English, in UK English, and American English, this is a way to just help search engines distinguish between those three different English pages so that you're not penalized for duplicate content, and also so that those pages are served in the right regions. So your Australian pages are served in Australia, the UK pages are served in the UK, so on and so forth. And even though there are loads and loads of plugins that are absolutely free that you can use to help set up your Airflying tags correctly if you're using WordPress, a lot of those still don't work as you would expect. And so even when I audit a website today, I see that a lot of these websites either have Airflying tags that are incorrectly set up, or they don't even have Airflying tags to begin with. So this video, I'm going to go with two of the most common mistakes that I see webmasters making when it comes to the Airflying tags. And when you even tell them that this is a mistake, they do not want to acknowledge it. And so I just wanted to go over the data and show you why this is a mistake and also what Google says about them, just so that you're not making the same mistake. The vast majority of websites, even today, despite all the plugins, are making it. So a search engine land study back in 2023 showed that 31% of international websites contain Herflang errors. And here's a screenshot to that study. Um, and out of those, 31.2% of websites contain conflicting Herflang directives. And again, here's a screenshot of what a conflicting Herflang directive is. And interestingly, 47.95% of websites don't even utilize the X default. And so the X default is mainly like, let's say you have a UK page, a US page, an Australian page, but the person is visiting from the Philippines and they speak English, but they're not specifically any one of those. So there would be a default page that shows up. So the people from the Philippines, so it can be the UK page, it can be the US page, it could be the Australian page, depending on what you choose. If you do not select the X default, then Google will not know what page to default to. Again, this is for Google, not for users, because you want Google to serve the right pages in the right regions. And so a person in the Philippines may not even see your page to begin with because you don't have an X default set up. So again, it's important to make sure that your Hairflying tags are set up correctly. So the first mistake I see webmasters make is that they don't have a return link. And this was a problem with a client I was working with even recently, that they had all the Herflang tags set up, but there were no return links. And because there was no return link, the pages weren't being served correctly. They wouldn't acknowledge it. They would say, it's because, we're not getting clicks, we're not getting backlinks, we don't have authority, but they wouldn't acknowledge the fact that this was an issue. And the reason they didn't want to acknowledge the fact that this was an issue was because the entire site would have to be redone and the technical SEO would have to be redone, and which is something they did not want to do, which is why at the end of the day, even today, they're not ranking very well, and they keep losing rankings each time there's a Google update, or each time there's a problem with the SERPs, or they're just not stable because they don't show up in the right regions, the correct pages don't show up, and even though the ones that we fixed, they started showing up, they started doing well, but because the entire site, which is like close to 1 million pages, isn't set up correctly, and they do not want to do it because it could require getting a developer to fix it for them, that is something they're losing out on. So I digress. It has to be reciprocal. Okay, what that means is that you have a link from the English page to the German page. Okay, so your Airflang tag is set up for the German page. So the English page points to the German page. So you're setting up the Herflang tag on the English page that points to the German page or the German language page. Now, on the German language page, you have a link that goes back to the English language page. And so that's a reciprocal link. And if you do not have that, then Google will see this as being incorrect or incorrectly set up, which means that at this point, Google will decide which page is the reciprocal page, and it can choose any page at random, which is why your rankings kind of fluctuate. They don't appear as well. And sometimes some of your features may not appear. So you might have the review snippet free feature that does not appear very well. And that's because your reciprocal links are not set up correctly. So the correct way to do it again is, let's say you're on the English page and you have a Hreflang tag pointing to the DE page. Make sure that on the DE page, you also have a link that points right back to the page that has a link to the DE page. So that's a reciprocal link. I've also tried to illustrate it if you guys need some help with that. The next one, the next big problem I see is that you're not following the right codes. And so many times I would see an Airflang tag and it will be UK or EN or something like that, but it will not be like a GB. So if you're setting up your Hreflang tags and you're using the wrong uh the wrong region code, then it's not going to work. So make sure that you're using the ISO 3166-1 Alpha 2 code. Now that's a mouthful, but again, I put a screenshot to it. You guys can search for this. And when you're setting up your Hreflang tags, just make sure that you're setting it up correctly. Now, why do you need to take your Hreflang tag seriously? So finally, I just want to go over why you want to take your Hreflang tag seriously, even though you might be using a plugin, because a lot of the plugins don't get it right. So you need to have basic understanding of how to set up your Hreflang tags to use those plugins correctly. And so anytime I would see I'm auditing a client's website, I would ask them if they're using a plugin. Most times they will be using, many times they will be using a plugin like, let's say, Rank Math. Okay. So let's say, for instance, Rank Math, if you're using Rank Math and if that you are allowing it to set up your Hreflang tags, if you're not checking how those are being set up, you're not going to the code of the page and checking the head of the page and seeing how the reciprocal links are set up and how the X default is set up, because that is something you would have to choose manually to do correctly. If you're not seeing how those are set up, most time they will be left blank. Okay. If you're using an outdated plugin, they might be even be using incorrect codes or ISO codes, which is why that if your website is not going to perform as it should. And the final bonus tip here, I just want to make this like very, very clear, is that you can have your Hreflang tags set up correctly, but even when you have like a minor mistake, like a missing ISO term, like for instance, if it's a UK page, you have UK in it and not GB, even something as simple as that can impact the whole website. Okay. So even though it might be with that specific page, that in fact may be infecting your whole website because your American page could be showing in the UK, and that is kind of causing a mix-up. You're going to have a problem ranking. So just make sure that you're segmenting your pages correctly, labeling them correctly in the Hreflang tag. I usually do this in a Google Sheets, plan it out correctly, make sure I'm checking everything, all the boxes, and then I copy and paste the code into the pages that need the Hreflang tags, and that's the best way to do it. That's the way I've been doing it for years. I think that's the way you should be doing it. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. Like and subscribe as always, and happy ranking.